talking too hard and everybody can hear, because that's usually the issue in the greenhouse. So I'll talk. I can talk pretty loud. I got a 9 and a 13-year-old. So I'm used to yelling a little bit, right? So you're welcome to look through the sheet later. We're going to kind of go fast and furious through a bunch of different grasses. Brought some fall perennials in, some of my favorites. That certainly doesn't mean these are the only ones, but just maybe a few that really do their thing from now until we get frost. I will say with fall perennials, I mean, I could go through my yard and talk about coneflowers and black-eyed Susan and hyssops and sneezeweed. I go on and on and on. They're all in bloom now, and they're still going to be blooming in the fall. So a lot of those summer perennials, we take a little bit of time to deadhead. We take care of them. We're going to get extended bloom time through the fall, too. But these will be things that are just starting now, and that will give us color definitely until we get frost. So they'll be a little bit different with the perennials. But we'll kind of start with grasses. I did kind of A to Z here. You can follow the list on the sheet. I think I have all of them in stock, but just a couple. We'll still mention them. We'll get them back in. You're always welcome around here to leave your name. We keep a wish list. So if there's something I run out of, something we don't have in stock, we'll get it again here for fall planting. Leave your name, how many you need. If it's a grass, I'll write a little note on there, and you can have the class discount when they come in as well. So we'll have that coming up. In case who's new to classes here? Anybody new? Nice, welcome. We got a couple new ones here. Otherwise, Sunnyside veterans. I see familiar faces, right? Just a reminder, we always have our big customer appreciation week. So a huge celebration. It'll start September 16th through the 22nd. The whole entire place will be on sale. We'll have extra raffles going. I think last year we had literally about $20,000 worth of stuff in here. We give away 10, 12 packages every day. And not just, oh, here's a plant, but here's a bunch of stuff to take home. So make sure you mark your calendars, come down for the annual sale. It's a great, great time that week. So if we kind of start with grasses, now I'll mention specific ones as we go, but really up here, it's going to come down to 2 types of grasses. We've got evergreen, stuff that's going to hold its color in the winter and the structure, and we have perennial, stuff that's going to be in bloom here in the fall. It's going to turn color, it's going to go brown, that we do want to start over again one time a year. So perennial grasses, just as an example, miscanthus, this is going to turn oranges, reds here, beautiful fall color. Hasn't even started, but I call it pluming instead of blooming. Hasn't even started its pluming yet for fall. I can pick my time. It might be Thanksgiving, it might be Christmas, it could be January, February, I don't care. But by early mid-March, I want to make sure I take a minute and chop that thing off at the ground level about 2 inches above the soil. Now we just start over again with a brand new plant, right? If I don't, what's going to happen? I have my brown, which is awful nice in the winter. I don't cut all mine back. I got motion, I got sound, it's got some structure. But if I start letting it grow green and I have brown, I'm going to have a real tough time getting the old out and leaving the new. If you're kind of OCD, a little like me, I want the old gone so I can enjoy the new. So if we get that cut back, now one time a year, we're all set, okay? Evergreen's going to be a little bit different. If I borrow the Carex, because I don't have, otherwise I borrow my hair, I don't have any of those. So we take evergreen grass. If I truly want to start this over again, this is going to be like a 1st of April thing. So this is never going to fix my grass. If I walk along and I chop blades and circle it, might look good for a week, and then I've got brown where I cut everything. So if I really want to start this over, it's maybe I leave the new growth in the center, chop everything off around the edge, or I'm just going to cut the whole thing off maybe 4 inches above the ground and let it truly start over again. I have a brand new grass. I do it all the time. It's not every year, maybe not every other year even, but we were talking before class, it might be one of those like every 3 years. Okay, that's enough. It starts you, cut you back, starts you over, and I've got essentially a new plant that starts over again, okay? Feeding, both of them will always help. Neither of these are really super heavy feeders, but if I get a good food, like I use a lot of times whatever I got in my garage bin, rose and flour, all-purpose, roadie food wouldn't be the end of the world. We just need some nitrogen to keep them happy. So if I go out and feed my grass You know, maybe when I cut it back in March, perfect. I'm probably set for the season. I don't have to go back and pump food on it every week. If I put too much on, what happens? Grows up, stretches, gets wet, and probably flops open because it's got too much growth. So we want slow, steady, very easy with the grasses. Now, if I'm going to divide mine, as I'm sure somebody's going to ask me about dividing after class, all these plants are definitely dividable. I've done big ones, small ones, everything in between. I'm not going to divide a new plant. If I'm going to take that home, I'm going to let it get established for a couple of seasons. Now, I can get a good sharp shovel and probably quarter or split it in half, and I've got another plant I can move somewhere else, you know, kind of thing. So very easy to divide, but that's always going to be like a dormant season thing. So maybe Thanksgiving through 1st of March again, and I can move them around. The last thing I would say before we look at specific ones is evergreen. Well, all grasses really. I got a lot of pots. I'm a plant addict, so I got pots all over my yard and the porches and the deck, all over the place. Everything always tends to have a grass in it at some point. You know, again, the texture, the color, the motion, the sound. I think a great way to add another element into the landscape, but also in containers. You know, I don't have to get a giant 6-foot grass in my pot. I could if I wanted, but I got a lot of options for small, tiny, little clumping grasses, whether they're evergreen or something perennial. They're going to add the color, the texture, the sound, the motion again, and I can enjoy my pot for a few years, and then I can go put it in the yard. You know, I go get another one for my pot. So that's an easy way to kind of recycle and reuse a lot of those plants for containers as well. Okay. So if we start with that grass list right there, the first one down here, actually I went the wrong way. I'll bring up is the first one's called Ecorus. Does anyone have a chorus in their yard? It's called sweet flag. So this is a small little grass. It's evergreen. They're super hardy. You can see from the roots, we actually keep these in water. This is one that we can have in heavy wet soil, clay, even a pond as a bog plant. But this is a short little grass that will give me some color, some texture, and naturalize. So if I put one of those in, this is going to develop more fans and slowly spread into a really nice patch. You know, that may, I wouldn't say invasive at all. The wetter the soil, the happier this is going to be. So if I'm looking for something that'll take some wet, that's a popular choice for containers again. A lot of times we have them in little pots that we can tuck in the edge of a pot for a little bit of color over the winter because these aren't evergreen, okay? So sweet flag is a little bit different than some because it can take that wet. That's not something that's going to be with a lot of these plants, and I can take the heavier clay soil and a little bit more moisture. Now the dead opposite, and we'll stick alphabetical, so we'll go dead opposite here. Oh, there he is. So this is one of my favorites, and probably a little bit newer plant for up here. But this is what we call andropogon, or big blue stem. Now this was a plant native down south in much drier climates. So this loves sun, loves heat, doesn't need a lot of water once it gets going. This is a good drought tolerant option. Now I've got a lot of cultivars of a lot of these grasses. This is one called Blackhawks. You can already see the dark purple color coming into the blade here as we get into August. This will intensify over the fall, and it's got great deep purple black color with the blooms that'll start here a little bit later, another month or so. So I think this is about a 5-footer. So this will get 5 feet tall. You know, that's not for everybody. Some people like a little shorter. If you're looking for a specimen grass that gets as big as me, a nice big clump will make a pretty good statement in the landscape. A lot of smaller options too, but this would be a little bit taller one. So andropogon might be one for you if you have hot sun. You like a little color earlier in the fall versus a lot of the other taller ones stay green longer. I think these are great additions to a lot of gardens. I have to have sun, and I can't be wet. That's one we definitely want to keep on the dry side, okay? And this is a really fun one. I see the little flags in here somewhere. There he is. So look at that cool little seed head on that. Isn't that a fun little grass? So this is what we call Putelia or grama grass. I think they look like little yellow flags. You know, they kind of sit there the opposite of all the grasses. Got a little parallel to the ground seed head. Really fun. So this is the same. These are perennial. I wouldn't have the structure in the winter go brown. I've still got the seeds. but I would start this over. But this is probably at the apex of drought tolerance. This is something we had a family had a place in Cleellum a lot of years, and we honestly used part of this as pasture grass, where I could just plant this out, let it seed itself, and this is something I could walk on. It doesn't get super tall. That's about it, but it's a great little plant. Again, I think a very unique little seed head on there for the grama grass. Okay, that's Butellia. Now, anybody live kind of close to me? I'm right in the middle of Everett. Anybody live near or go to the Everett YMCA? Anybody? Not one. Oh wow. So you're going to kill my analogy. So I don't have any Calamagrostis. It's what we call feather reed grass. But if we drive around a lot of commercial landscapes, a lot of good homes as well, that's a very little stiff upright grass that might get about this tall with the seeds. They're already in full seed right now. And that's one we can mass and really use as a structure plant. So I'm just happening to get sold out this week. We'll get more of them. But we can get green blades, we can get variegated. But that's one if I wanted maybe a little bit earlier seed, a little bit earlier color. That's not one that waits till September, October to do its thing. It's more like July, August, starts to go to seed. Some people think it looks a little more native. You know, it's not a native plant in here, but it does look a little bit more native like our typical native grasses as well, okay? Now, Carex, I brought a whole bunch of in. This is our evergreen here in front, so I'll grab a few different ones here as we go. But most people, I think, are familiar with different Carex, you know, little mounding evergreen plants. We're not talking about something that's going to get much taller than a foot, maybe foot and a half. Older clumps can be divided. The biggest thing with Carex, they will take a little bit of wet. That's not the hugest issue. They're not drought tolerant. That's why we probably want to water just a touch more. They're great in pots. They're great in yards. But this is one, you know, this is one I have. This one likes shade. You know, you want to watch your tags on these and look at the locations. This is one you're going to have a much nicer plant with much better color if I'm in shade or part shade, not afternoon sun. Other ones, I'm going to be perfectly happy out in hot, hot sun. So just check your tags. They're pretty versatile, most of them, how to use. Now, there are lots of perennial type Carex. I want to make sure we're clear. Just because it says Carex doesn't mean it's evergreen. Look at your tags. I have some perennial ones in my own landscape as well. But the vast majority of them you'll find here at Sunnyside and typical nurseries in our area. A lot of them are going to be evergreen. So this is one we just need to choose our color. You know, what's your style? Do I like bright yellow like me? Sweet. This is Everillo. I might want something like Everillo. Maybe I like a little bit more white clump on the green. Then I'd want Everest, a little bit different color with that. Maybe I like a little more true yellow. That's Eversheen. Now it's got a great little blade color. That's a little tinier than some of the old ones as well. Then if I really want to go bold, and I use a lot of these because I like the color, my wife calls this cowboy sedge. Oh, you wanted to get repotted. Because he looks like leather, right? So that is not dead. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what it's supposed to look like. So this is one called cappuccino. So I would have that color today. I'd have that color in a month. I have that color in January. And I have that color next spring. So that is evergreen. In this case, it's kind of ever cappuccino, right? And this is probably the grass I use more than anything. I like orangey tones a lot in my pots in my yard. So this is what we call New Zealand sedge, or Carex testacea. So that's a little evergreen grass. Again, 1 foot tall. The clumps will get larger. I know last winter was a little rough on a lot of mine, so I had to cut them back in April, like we talked about. New plants came right back up again. So this is one we want to keep maybe these two a little bit more dry versus the other ones that we talked about. But as long as I have decent drainage, I'm going to have great luck with those in pots as well. So again, it's all about your style. It's not mine. I like yellows. I like orange. But, you know, that's a pretty cool plant. I've used that in pots on my patio, even over the winter time. And it is a really cool color, depending on what I kind of mix with it when I'm doing a little container design. Okay. We've got Chasmathium. Someone was up, we were talking about the sea oats before class. Look at that cool plant. So they're just starting to do their little oat seeds here when we get into August. I have this in my yard as well. This is one of the few grasses that'll give me a little bit of height, a couple of feet, that will do some shade, and it will also do some wet. If I went and found this native, I'd be on the upper Midwest and a lot of the lakes and the marshes and the bogs and things. It's kind of a native grass, but it's a beautiful texture, I think, with really nice color, kind of a lime green. I've had a clump in my front yard for 15 years. It gets a little bit of sun late in the day, but it's happy as can be underneath the Japanese maple for, again, the texture, the color, the sound. And this is one of my favorite little seeds. It does look like little oats when they come out and seed here in the fall. Okay? So a little bit different on that Chasmathium. Now, anyone who knows me, I'm always honest. I don't want to offend anybody. Who likes pampas grass? Got any lovers in here? Oh, good, so I won't say it. This is not one of my favorites, personally, but this is pampas grass. You know, if I'm looking for a big, huge specimen grass, and you know, pampas grass has got the old-fashioned feather dusters. I got a monster flower. I usually tell people move back to South Carolina when they ask me for pampas grass. But it grows here. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just because I'm not my favorite thing in the world. Doesn't mean it doesn't work in yards. You see it around all over the place. That's a big plant. That's the one thing I always tell people. We sell a lot of pampas grass, believe it or not. And it's like, if you're going to put it in, hey, probably going to get some sort of chainsaw that I can cut it back whenever I do when it's old. We had a neighbor across the street over here. It must have been 8 feet across and about 10 feet tall. He had the old species over there. But it makes a barrier. I mean, there's uses for it. It's not that. It does great with seacoast conditions. A lot of spots we have. But it's just a big plant. It's a little bit sharper. I'm brushing my hand on it here. And I can say, yeah, if you're not careful, you get a little slice on the blades. That's a little bit sharper. Now, the one thing I'll say about pampas grass, we tend to carry the dwarfs, which is always like the dwarf world. Now you're about as big as me, not 8 or 10 feet, but 6. The one thing people always ask for is pink pampas grass. Okay, there's a pink flowering one, and it is a little bit of pink, but don't believe the internet. Every time I go on and go on your phone and say, show me a picture of pink pampas grass, it's going to be, art studioed out. It's going to look like a flamingo, and it's like, yeah, it's not nearly that pink. I'm sorry to tell you. It's like just a little tiny bit of pink in there with the typical cream. Okay. The Shamsia, we call more. That's one of the types of little clumping grasses. Can you see all the colors on that? So this is one called Northern Lights. That's a fabulous little grass. This is one, again, I'm probably not buying one of these in my yard, but I'm putting in 3 or 5 or a little swath of them, because then you're going to make a statement. This is not a big plant. It does get a cool little seed head on it, but this will give me pinks and greens and whites, a little more towards yellows when we get to the fall. But that's a lovely little plant. That's not a crazy invasive thing at all, but a nice little tidy clumper. When I see these, look very sharp when we have, again, a mass planting of them, and not just one here and one there, but a nice little swath of them. We talked about, before class, we talked a little bit about fescue. Who's got blue fescue? Now, we were in Eastern Washington, we've got native fescue. Hot, dry. This is a great drought-tolerant grass. They're evergreen. They take hot. Very low maintenance. The only issue over here is the wet. So we got to make sure we're in good drainage. We want to make sure we have absolutely full sun. And again, like I mentioned before, even though it's evergreen, I have this in my rockery in full sun. I love the grass. It's a great color blue. But every 2 or 3 years, I'm cutting this back in April so that it starts over again. If I don't, I'm going to have kind of that matted, typical fescue look. This is a grass we would use in lawns and all kinds of places. So if I want the blue, cutting it back this side of the mountains, I think, is essential to let it start over again and give me that fresh foliage every couple of years, and they'll have a nice plant long term. Okay? Hakanakloa. So who's got shade? Yeah. Okay, so who do you got? Anybody got these in their yard? Now, this is very popular plant around here. If you need some, I have lots of it in my yard too. So this is a plant we would say naturalizes. If we were doing this class in native Japan where this grows, all the woodland forests, this would literally be the carpet that grows underneath the Japanese maples, the Japanese cedars, a lot of their native forests. This is their grass. So yes, man has taken it from green and added color and gotten gold, different tones on it, very sharpened landscape. But this is one, if I put one in, it's going to spread like a ground cover. So I put a few plants in, I've got a very large patch of it underneath the Japanese maple. It does go dormant. We simply wait till a hard frost. It goes brown after it turns red, typically, a great fall color grass. We chop it off, put it in the yard waste, and then here it comes up again next spring. So this is a plant, old clumps. We've got one in the shade area you can look at. I mean, old clumps will be very impressive. You know, 3 feet across, 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. They do get a nice little seed on them here in the fall. But it's one that's going to spread and naturalize a little bit like a ground cover. So if I have shade, I want something underneath to kind of meander and fill up area, keep weeds down, I think that's a fabulous choice for that woodland garden, the shade garden, the part shade garden. Just not too much sun. Trust me, I've tried it. Getting out towards the edge of the sun. Like, I wonder what you do if I put you out where you get sun till 3. It's a little bit tired late summer. So morning sun, fine, but afternoon sun, we definitely want to keep it a little bit more in the shade. So if you'll see, I'm out of the green right now. There's nothing wrong with the green. Typically, it's called benikaze, and it probably turns the brightest red in the fall. So we would get another month, and it would look like burning bush before it goes brown, dormant, and then we'd see you again next year. We sell a lot of the gold and variegated options. So this is one we call all gold. This would be a little bit more yellow in the garden or lime green. But again, I would have that nice little short sprawling grass for the color, the texture. The most popular one by far is the Aureola. So that's got the striped blades on it. And I would see a little bit of pink and red going on that here for the fall. And now we've got some fun new ones. I think this is Lime Zest. Just a touch taller, but that's got beautiful color. I'm going to end up probably finding a spot to add one of these. This is brand new this year. And we have Lemon Zest, which I'm out of. We'll get some more here. But that's almost all the colors in one. A little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of white. It's a little different color than most of the ones I've seen around. So this is another one. If you've got patience, you know, buy one. Give it a little bit of room to naturalize. You'll be happy. When I typically buy them, I'll get 3 and cover up that large area a little bit faster. This is one here in Gallon. A lot of times we do right now, we have lots of starts of that up there too. So if you want to save a little bit of money, you know, instead of buying a gallon, I'd say go buy 3 quarts. Let those spread out, 1.5 feet apart, let them make a nice patch for you as they grow in, okay? Now, oatgrass, the next one there, Heliotrichum, is just like our fescue. So that's just exactly the same discussion. I'm Eastern Washington, Idaho, very heat tolerant, evergreen, hardy to like 30 below zero. I hope we never get quite that cold over here. But this is one, again, I would start over every year or every other year like the fescue would, but I want to plant that really well-drained soil in hot, hot sun, on a bank even. I don't want that where it's wet or you're going to have struggles with the oatgrass. So if I'm going kind of xeriscaping or somewhere with lavenders and other plants I don't have to water a lot, that's a great grass companion with those type of plants. They all kind of like the same situation, okay? Now, bloodgrass, I get to use my favorite phrase in the plant world, one of those gifts that keeps on giving, right? Who's got, anybody got bloodgrass?
I want it.
You got lots of bloodgrass, right? So this is one, again, it's not for everybody. This will take some wet, again, a little bit more wet, a little heavier soil. It's not super tall. It's one of the few plants that we can get in the grass world that's going to give us that color, period. I don't have anything else in the grass world that I can walk out in April, and May, and June, and July and see red. I mean, that's a really good color. I was somewhere out shopping last week. Commercial Landscape had a beautiful swath of this on a curb planting. It was like, wow, that's really sharp. But again, they needed it to naturalize and spread. This is one, I'd hate to use the word invasive because that's negative, but this one would be that. I mean, I'm being honest with you. If I have room and I want it to fill up an area, that's a great plant. If I'm looking for something that stays right there, that is not the plant for you, because that one is going to run stems and pop up and naturalize. It's a great one. A lot of times I tell people, tuck it in a rockery. You know, I've got rocks here, rocks there. It makes a great texture and color, but now I got nowhere to keep going. It'll fill up that spot, and off we go. This is not evergreen, so I would have that color till fall. This is one we would zip off again, then start right off again for 2025. Okay?
You trim it at the end of fall or later?
But again, it's up to you. I'm kind of on the OCD side of garden, so I'm probably out cleaning up probably too much in the fall. I don't have any problem at all. You leave it alone. You let the insects, the birds, whoever wants a piece of it, let it sit there as mulch all winter. We just want to make sure it's cut off before it starts for next year. So that time in March again. Okay, absolutely. Liriope is always one I go back and forth. Should I bring it in here or should I not? But I usually do because it's a little different. It's not really a grass. But if I look at that, it looks like a grass. Okay, so we'll throw it in with the grassy texture plants. But this is one, oh, we borrowed a piece of heck of a flower. This is one that I would actually get a flower. I mean, that's a pretty cool bloom. This is a plant used a lot in the southeast. It's super hardy up here. It's not, we have any issues growing it in Washington. Pots again, I use it a lot in my pots for the texture. It's evergreen. This is one that even takes some foot traffic. I see a lot of times some people online now calling this out as a lawn substitute. There's smaller versions of that we can put in that have a deeper root system, won't need as much water kind of thing. So this is a variegated one called Silvery Sunproof. Lots of green ones. There's white striped on green. Lots of options. I can pick blue, purple, white, pink flower. I could get different flowering cultivars as well. But I think another good example of a clumping grass that I'm probably not going to get one unless I'm doing a pot. I'm going to get a few. You know, I've got a walkway going up to the door. Sweet. Let's line it with Liriope and have a nice look. I've got a little swath up by the porch. Let's put 5, 6, 7 of them in. Let it fill up a little area along a border. Then we go up to the height behind it. So something to certainly consider. It's one of those grass-like plants, we'll call them. Not quite a real grass. Now, probably the biggest variety of stuff is the next one, Miscanthus. Anybody got Miscanthus? So we call this maiden grass. We call it a bunch of different names, and a native plant to Japan. But this is one I could literally have, if the table's ground level, I could literally have a 2 to 3 foot plant, a 4 foot plant, a 5 foot plant, or you can have one like my zebra grass that hits about 9 feet. So, I mean, I can pick any height. I can pick green. I can pick white on green, gold on green, different colors. They all turn beautiful shades in the fall. So this is one, we're not quite to plume time yet, but I typically use these at my house. I have a lot of Miscanthus here and there, and I use this instead of corn. Sounds funny, but we get to the fall decorating time, Halloween comes up, I go cut stalks of my tall Miscanthus with the plumes on it, bundle that up. That's what sits by my door versus the corn. So, I mean, I can use it for different things, but it's a big, impressive specimen grass to me. I'm not going to say never plant 3 or whatever your number is, but a lot of times one of those breaks up in the garden and makes a really nice specimen. I really get a lot of sound, a lot of motion, a lot of color, and a lot of plume on the Miscanthus that I have in my place. So again, variegated green, you can pick any shade you want and pick your heights. So just a couple here. This is one, if we were a month from now, would be brilliant orange to purple to red. This is one called Fire Dragon. So I would get my flowers, maybe 5 foot of height on that as it gets older, but my clump gets bigger every year, not run and pop up. Does that make sense? I'm gonna have a bigger specimen as it matures, and I can always, I do it to mine probably every 8, 9, 10 years. Okay, that's enough, you've gotten big, get the sharp shovel out, get the sawzall out, quarter it, cut it in half, move some somewhere else, put a plant back where it was, and we can start over again. I just did mine 2 years ago, so hopefully I don't have to again for a few years. But we got like Fire Dragon. This is the all-time most popular one. the dwarf maiden grass, which will get about 4 feet. This is Gracilis. It's got a great green with a really nice plume. This is one I have, one of my favorites with the lighter color. This is a silver miscanthus called Morning Light. So again, about 3-4 feet. Nice, decent height, really pretty plume. But that's got a thinner blade and some really nice color. If you want to go bold, this is the miniature version of my zebra grass. You'll see like the yellow bands that go horizontal. Really cool look. Is this gold bar? Yeah, this is gold bar. But there's a whole bunch of cultivars of these kind of dwarf golden variegated miscanthus. So you'll see ones like gold bar out there as well. That's got a great little color to it. I think I could have brought up one more. I could have brought up about 10 miscanthus. We carry a lot of these. So this is a little different the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years. 4 foot was about the line for miscanthus. Everything 4 foot and larger. Now we've got some fun ones. This has got a great name, Little Miss. So Little Miscanthus here. You can already see some of the color coming in for fall here as we're starting to get towards fall today. But this would be under 3 feet. I've got a little smaller plant. And you'll see a few cultivars now where it's like, I like that grass, I like the color, it's got great plumes in the fall, but I don't have room for 6 feet, 8 feet, whatever it is. There are some great small ones now where you can stay a little bit smaller in that 2 to 3 foot range, a little more manageable, okay? We got a few more here. Molina, we call Moor grass. You can see that's in full plume right there. That's got a really pretty little seed coming out. So this is a short one, got great color. This is the variegated form, which is what we typically carry. This to me will be very similar to my Deschampsia. You know, I've got a nice little low mounding clump grass. I'm probably, one in a pot, great. But if I'm putting this in my yard, I'm probably getting 3 or 5 or a swath to make a little statement. That's another one I see around walkways, a little swaths of it in gardens. Looks very, very sharp. It's got a great little look to it. And that one will take a little bit of wet too. We don't have to keep that one quite as dry as some of the other ones we've talked about, okay? Now here's another gift that keeps on giving. Let me see if I can find it. Ah, there we go. Anyone have that guy? You know what that one is? So they used to be a stipa. Now they've given it its own name, Nacella. But this is, we call it Mexican feathergrass. Looks like blonde hair when we get to fall. So that's it for height, very tidy. But this is one, if you like things that naturalize, go buy one of these. I remember my mother, bless her heart, she's got a place down the beach. They retired. She loves plants like me. I wonder where I got it from. But she's got grasses on the beach. I remember telling her what she did about 15 years ago, like, you sure you want to put some of those Mexican feathergrass down, Mom? You know you're going to have 1,000. Oh, yeah. Just let it naturalize. So her whole bank on the shore is nothing but Mexican feathergrass at this point. This is one, when it goes to seed, you have another one and another one and another one. One of the few ones that will really propagate itself by seed. So not for everybody, but certainly if I've got dry, hot, I don't want to water again, it takes a lot of conditions. Very easy to grow, and it is got great texture. I mean, it's really soft. You get an old plant in the fall here, it looks like a big blonde hair. It really does. It looks got a nice look to it. So that is the Mexican feather grass. Okay. Who do we got next? Ooh, right in front of him. I should have grabbed him. So this is another one, kind of like our Lirio. Anybody got black mondo grass? A little Halloween earlier, right? So this is another gift that keeps on giving that I don't mind. I've got a lot of mondo grass in my shade garden. This is one, can take some sun, but if you're looking for something that will naturalize as a ground cover, I mean, that's it. I'm going to have about 6-8 inches of height. It'll spread by root. It will choke down weeds. It'll surround plants. I've got huge patches of this. I think I put 3 4-inch plants in 20 years ago, and I probably have a 30-foot by 20-foot garden of mondo grass, and all the shrubs and perennials coming up, but it is a solid ground cover now. So these are not cheap. They're a little bit harder to propagate for a grower, and they start slow. They're not super fast growing, but this is a plant, again, great for containers. This is the perfect thing to pop in the orange pumpkin by the door for the Halloween decoration, right? Where we plant these in our garden, and I have that color evergreen. I'll be honest, you know, when I started doing this 30 years ago, I'm like, why would I put black in my shade area? It's just dark, more dark. It looks really cool. I mean, you got greens, different colors going. It really does pop with a little different foliage color. They do get a pretty little flower, and then I get the little metallic berries on there as well in the fall. Be careful, I taught my sons early, we don't eat those berries. They look sometimes like fun, but they are not good for our stomachs, okay? So, mondo grass, and if you don't like black, we can go green. You know, that's another one. A lot of people online looking at things like Ophiopilgon with a little deeper root system as a lawn substitute. That could take some foot traffic. The small ones are really tight little green tufts. There's certainly some options there as well, okay? Now another pretty good group of taller ones, the last couple here, there's quite a few. So this is switchgrass. Can you see that tall one there? So kind of blue, a little different color. The coolest thing with switchgrass is we're starting to get the colors in, okay? So I can see the reds and the purples coming in now in August. That just intensifies here over the coming 6-8 weeks until we have really good fall colors. Switchgrass is a plant we would find in the prairies. You know, hot, dry again, super drought tolerant, not super tall, that's about it, 3 feet on most of them with the seeds on them. But if I like that blue-green and really nice red to purple color in the fall, that's a great clumping grass that we can mass or use again. That's one I've got a bank high, kind of city easement bank up high against my fence outside my yard. Fence for itself. Makes a great little statement on the fence. We were down kicking soccer balls down at an elementary school. I looked over and was like, wow, look at that. They had planted, probably the PTA, a whole line of these in a curb planting, where I can tell you right now, they haven't been touched in, I don't know, 20 years. And there they were, full bloom, looking purple and red right now. Spectacular looking grass there for low maintenance. So switchgrass maybe one if you got the hot sun again, good drainage, certainly something to consider. Pennisetum, probably up with miscanthus, is going to have the best flowers. So if I pull these away here, I can start seeing my pennisetums. So I can really see an actual plume or flower going on those pretty easily. So pennisetums, again, hot sun, we have to have good drainage. That's one that will not do well if we got heavy clay, too much wet. We want to make sure we're in sun and we've got good drainage. But I can pick out great ones like redhead. There's one, ginger love. Doesn't that sound fun? Everybody needs some ginger love, right? So I'm going to pick a little different color on my seed head on pennisetums, but again, a nice clumping, up to maybe 3 feet tall at the most. Most of them are more like 2, but something I can really use in the landscape. I don't know that I do that one in the pot quite as much. It's going to get a little bit bushier, but certainly in the yard makes a nice statement. So we got tall ones in here. Let's see if we can keep them all straight. So there's my ginger love. You know, that's the newer one here the last few years. This one looks like redhead, but I might be wrong. Let's see. That's Moodry. That's an old variety. It looks a lot like redhead. Can you see how bright that is coming out? Yeah. I mean, look at that color. That's really pretty. Thought I grabbed a redhead. There's my redhead. You can see that color coming out. You see that new plume?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look at that color coming out right now. That's a, say hello to switchgrass. Really nice. And then again, maybe I don't want height. Then I want to get ones like that. Look at that little guy. So this is a little guy called Little Bunny. And now we have Burgundy Bunny, which I'll have again too. So same thing, but I would have a little touch of that burgundy on the foliage right now towards fall. So if I wanted something a foot or under, then I could mass plant in hot sun, very little water, let it fend for itself. That'd be a great choice again. A lot of times mixing with the lavenders and the rosemaries and a lot of the drought tolerant stuff in the full sun. Okay?
Trevor,
Yeah.
I didn't think fountain grass was a perennial though. Is it?
Yeah, so I should have brought one in because I do them in pots. There's one plant that we carry and a lot of people buy. We sell hundreds of them a year here. I buy one every year. It's called purple fountain grass. So if I buy purple fountain grass, that is an absolute annual in Washington. I have no chance of that ever coming back. So I could show you mine, front porch pot, huge container. That's my thriller at the background. It is spectacular right now. My wife's like, I want that out here every single year until we're gone. So I'm going to plant that in the pot now every year because it is dark purple. The plume's right now in full flower, but I'll enjoy it till we get a hard frost. That'll come out and go to the compost heap in the sky, and I'll go buy another one next May again because it's just an annual around here. I'm looking for something, that's the one color people want, that purple blade on it all through the year and hardy. That's the one thing we can't do quite yet. I know they're working on it, but that's the one thing we can't do. Purple fountain grass, totally unique look. California, that's what we would use everywhere. You know, it lasts forever. But up here, just an annual kind of thing, okay? So the last one for grasses is another one I use a lot of and one of my faves. So we talked about this guy earlier. We had Andropogon, the big blue stem, right? I'm looking for a grass 5, 6, 7 foot tall, a little bit more of a specimen size. This is what we call little blue stems, Schizocarium. So look at the colors coming in on that already. I have this in one of my gardens, and I just bought one of these because they're brand new about a month ago. But this is another apex of the drought tolerant, really low maintenance for sun. As long as I got heat, I don't overwater, and I've got good drainage, this will be a fend for itself grass. Really nice structure and much shorter. So I had spots in my yard, I like this, I have that in my yard too, but I'm like, I can't deal with this. I like the color and the blues and the reds and the purples, but I want something more like 2 or 3 feet. Now we get this one, Standing Ovation. Probably again, one of the more popular plants around here these days. So this is one again, I put 3 in, makes a great little statement in one of my sunny gardens. And I just got one of these that broke my rule, and I'll probably go buy 2 more next year. But I got one of these I added underneath my front kitchen window because I love the variegation. And again, I'm already seeing that color come in late summer versus having to wait till late September, October, November. This is one we'll get color on a little bit earlier than some of the others, okay? So a little bit like Miscanthus, maybe in the structure, but a little bit shorter, and I get the color a little bit earlier. Miscanthus to me probably has the most impressive of the tall flower stalks, and then my switchgrass, the pennisedums, and the little blue stems are kind of that next level with an interesting texture. Earlier color would be the biggest difference on the foliage, a little bit of color, okay?
Was one grass overlooked here? It seems to have a darker color.
The Mondo?
No.
This one?
Yes.
So this is switchgrass again.
Oh, okay.
So this, I only grabbed 2, 1. So this is a great one, Hot Rod. So this again would be my 3 foot tall, but the whole thing with switchgrass, I'm getting the color a little bit late summer versus waiting all the way till fall. So this will intensify with the purples, and I will end up with like a scarlet red on that as we're in like full color later.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hot Rod, you got it. So I'm going to show you a couple perennials real quick, then we got lots of time for questions, okay? Now, again, I mentioned at the beginning, the fall perennial thing is always interesting because a lot of the summer stuff, like I mentioned earlier, that we're using is still blooming through the fall. My entire butterfly garden's in full bloom. I would consider all those fall perennials. Who's got hardy fuchsias? You know, I got them all over my yard. When do hardy fuchsias stop blooming? Not until we get a hard frost, much later in the season. So all that started in June, July, but it's going to continue to give us flower power all the way through mid-fall. So until we get a frost, that's all on the table too. But here's maybe a few things that maybe some of you think about, others don't, that I think kind of show fall. I mean, really good fall plants from now until we get the frost. So the first batch of mums is in. Anyone doing mums? Now, I've messed around with mums. You know, we sell these in our quote-unquote annual department, but there's nothing about Belgian mums that's not perennial. If they don't come back, it's going to be because they got too wet. Okay, that's the only reason. It's not a cold thing. I think I'm a pretty good gardener. I would never pretend to know everything, but I'm probably 50-50 with mums. I mean, that's about as good as you're going to do. Enjoy the color. They're great pots. Throw them in the landscape, wherever you want to. It's the quintessential fall bloom, doing mums in every shade in the rainbow. But if they don't come back, oh well, you know, I'm on to something else. I'm not going to go slit my wrist because I couldn't grow a mum through the winter time, okay? So mums are fun. The trick with mums, I'll tell you now, is pruning. You know, I get a plant like that from our grower, and I got 1 bazillion flower buds ready to open. if I had that in my yard coming back from last year and I didn't pinch it back or prune it, maybe once or twice, once in May, once in July, I'm still going to have flowers, but I'm going to have a way more open, taller plant with a fraction of the amount of bloom, okay? So if you're going to grow mums year to year, take some time in the spring to clean them up, get them fed, and start cutting back those stems as they come up so I can have a nice full plant with maximum flower, okay? So mums is one. Close second is the aster. Now these will be particularly perennials. They don't have any issue with having asters come back, again, as long as they're not too wet. This is one that comes into bloom now. So if I'm looking at August, September, into early October, this is one I'm going to get a lot of flower power out of for the bees. So blues, pinks, lavenders, purples, whites. There's a lot of options for asters. No yellow, no orange, no real red, but all those other tones. I can find some beautiful asters out right now too. Now this is another one we got to keep in sun. If you do asters in shade, they're going to struggle. The issue probably with asters up here, as it raining sideways today in August, is mildew. So if I have them crowded, I don't have good air circulation, I have them in too much shade, I'm going to find a little bit of powdery mildew on them. Is usually the issue that I hear from a lot of gardeners. So keep those in sun, give them some air circulation, don't pack them in, use them in pots again. It's a great one to throw in a container for a little fall color, mixing with all the things. Asters are certainly worth consideration too. Now lots of cool ferns up here. This time of year I always have to bring in the autumn fern. So this is a native plant to Japan. This is evergreen. This won't die down in the winter and disappear, but I'm always going to have this color on my new growth. A great little fern. I have this in my shade garden. You can use it in pots again. This makes a pretty impressive fern specimen when we get an old one. If you've got a woodlandy, shady garden, moisture's okay. They do need some water. This isn't a drought-tolerant plant. Certainly in the summer, a little bit of irrigation. But that's a fun plant we can mix into any kind of shade or woodland garden that says fall to me. Autumn fern's a great little Japanese donation for some color. Now here's another, I use that 3 times now today, another gift that keeps on giving. So who's got anemones? Or who's got 1,000 anemones? Yeah. There you go. This one's not for me because I'm probably too OCD to go, okay, that's too much. I just want like 3 plants, not 20. But if I want naturalizing things, I've got shade, I want to fill up some area, that's a plant that blooms fabulously, goes to seed, and gives me more plants every year. So it's not like it's going to take over your whole yard, I'm not going to say that. But if I've got moisture, I've got shade, it'll naturalize very well and be an impressive perennial for you. We have some in one of our shade gardens here on the property, and you can see it popping up all over amongst the other plants, which is awesome. It's what we wanted to do if you've got that shade woodland garden type of deal. So you can find doubles, you can find singles, lots of pinks, lots of whites, different tones. There's some other fun colors out there too if you look. But this is one now, we have some options as far as height. You know, old-fashioned anemones, I could probably get up there towards 3 feet. We've got some now that are less than 1 foot. So I can really kind of pick what I want to use for a height and pick the right variety for my own yard as well, okay? Plumbago, this is one I finally succumbed to my addiction of blue flowers and bought 3 of these last year. So this was a new addition to my own garden. This is one we can take a lot of sun, they're pretty good drought tolerant. That's about as blue as it gets in nature. You see plumbago in flower here, late summer through fall, bright red burning bush foliage with cobalt blue flower. Makes a beautiful plant for the fall time. So this is one, again, I listened to myself for a change and I bought 3. 1 would have been okay, but I'm like, nah, I want 3. We're gonna do 3 and let it fill in a little area. So it'll run a little bit, spread underground with roots, and I will have down the road a beautiful patch of it. You know, that'll sit right on the border where I get a bunch of afternoon sun in one of my gardens. I was looking for something new to try there. So this is one to think about for sure. It's not super tall, but if I like that combination of great fall color on the foliage with the cobalt blue flower, then this dies with frost. We chop it off. We'll see you again next year. I mean, it's really, really easy one to grow, okay? we'll save that one for last because that's the best fall plant up here. So anybody do a Berginia? That's another one we use a lot of times in pots. We use it in the garden. This always reminds me of my grandmother, bless her heart, her half-a-mile rockery that I spent as a kid weeding her Berginia every summer when I was down to visit grandma for the summer. So this is one, again, will spread. It's evergreen. The foliage will turn a beautiful burgundy in the winter, which is nice, but it doesn't go dormant. So we would have the structure in the wintertime. Nice little flower, a lot of times in the fall, a little bit in spring as well. It'll bloom, but certainly something to consider for pots or the yard. It's a great one for fall and over the winter dormant time as well. Oh, we got two left here. Now, I'll tell you one of the good things about running a nursery, Steve's not here so I can talk, is I can always try stuff in his demo gardens here before I take it home, right? So this is one probably 10 years ago came out, and I love Dan Hinckley. I think he's done a fabulous job hunting for some pretty cool plants around the world that we get to use. But I'll be honest, a lot of time his plants are right on the hardy line. You know, I look at my yard like, don't have the internet's lying to if you think you're in zone 8, you're in zone 7. I'll start with that. But a lot of his stuff is zone 7, zone 8. And I'm like, okay, if I get 3 of those, will it come back? So this is a plant, saxifrage, he introduced probably 10 years ago. It's got great foliage color, great for shade, deep dark shade. You know, if it didn't bloom, I'd still like the plant. You know, that's a cool plant. But I'm telling you right now, if we fast forward a month and we get to the end of September and October, this thing is covered with bright pink flowers. I mean, it doesn't even bloom until October. Some years it's November in my yard. So it's all about fall flower, but it's got great foliage. Now, it was right on the line, and I thought, I don't know, man, I lose a lot of zone 8, zone 7, sometimes even in my yard in Everett. So I snuck 3 of these into the garden over here when they came out. Steve didn't notice. I said, let's just see what they do. Next year, we had a cold winter that year too. It's like, oh sweet, came back. Took 3 home, I've had them ever since. So this is a small little clumping plant. I think it looks pretty all through the season, but especially for fall flower, that's gonna be at the top of the list. You know, a little foliage plant with some bright pink flower, but no sun at all. That's one I have 0 light on mine. I wanted that color and that flower inside my fence, underneath other shrubs and trees, where I can enjoy the flowers in the fall, okay?
No sun?
No, you can have a little bit of morning sun on it, but I would go, that's a deep dark shade or an understory plant. I don't want any direct sun on that in the summertime. Now, last one here, a lot of people are coming up, I think, and looking at that. Who's got Macadamia? It's always a fun one to say. A lot of people are like, dude, what's the Japanese maple ground cover? That looks really cool. So this is one we get to fall, we call this Crimson Fans. So this is what it does every fall. It's a nice plant during the growing season, gets a little white flower stalk on it. When we get to fall, that is what I get to enjoy until we get to frost. So this is one, again, dark shade, woodland garden. If I was to pick a perfect spot, I have mine where it gets a little bit, 2, 3, 4 hours of morning sun, shade the rest of the day. We don't want noon, I don't want 2, we don't want 5 o'clock. It's either very end of the day, maybe facing west, a couple hours, or something where I just get a little bit of morning sun. I'm gonna get the best red color and the best performance on that plant. So this is another low clumping one, goes dormant in the winter. I'm gonna cut it off at some point. It's gonna melt, turn to mush, kind of like a hosta does. We scrape it up, we fling it in the yard waste, then we start it over again that next spring, okay? So I think that's a whole lot of plants. Let me see if I got any others. I think I got them all. If anyone cares, I brought them in for decoration, but these are a couple of my favorite fall shrubs. I actually wrote about them a couple weeks ago. So they call floral berry or hypericum. So those are shrubs. A lot of the florists now are charging me astronomical amount of money for fall flowers. That's a common branch now they throw in there. I can get reds, blacks, whites, pinks, any color in the rainbow. We got some really cool floral berries around here for fall time too, okay? So do we got any questions? Lots of questions? Overload, yes?
Deer?
Deer. So there's a few things that deer will nibble on up here. And I should try to remember. I'll mention the one specific deer. A lot of these, look at the tag. Because I don't fight the deer as much, but Mr. Rabbit is driving me crazy in my house. So put those two together, a lot of times we have resistance to both. And look on the back of that tag, because it's going to tell you critter, or I have a picture of the elk with the line through it. It's going to tell you, no, deer aren't going to mess with these as much. There's not really much in here that they would really go for, but if you really want to fight the deer, check for the resistant ones for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Powdery mildew, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you do anything for it? Or?
Well, I would a little bit. It's not, powdery mildew looks like the plague, but it's not. I mean, the foliage is kind of exactly. It'll kill the pathogen in a good compost pile. I just don't want it spreading on everything else because mildew is one of those things. A lot of diseases almost tend to be plant specific. I get something on this and I get a different form on that. But mildew is one of those things tends to get on everything. So that's my only issue is if I don't control it, it went from the aster and now it's on this and now it's on that, now it's on that. And the wetter we get, the longer nights and the heavy dews, the more mildew's gonna come out.
You just tear it out or?
No. I wouldn't tear it out. If it was me, I'd leave it on there. It probably depends on the plants a little bit, but I would always maybe get it sprayed once with something natural. Neem oil, copper fungicide's a very good thing. It's pretty natural too. A lot of that stuff will keep it to a minimum and certainly will protect the plants that are next door to it. Absolutely. Yeah. Now don't feel alone. The way the weather was this spring, I've got stuff in my yard, it's one of those once in 15 years. It just was wet and cool much longer, and then we got cooking hot. There's some things that just aren't quite as nice as they were in past years. We'll be right back in business again next year. It'll be fun. Got no more? Well, thanks for coming. If you go, I know it's raining. It's not raining too hard today. We're back to summer. We're back to summer tomorrow. I was kind of bummed it rained today, but we need the rain anyway, honestly. Tomorrow's back to summer. They're saying it will be another. Here we go, back to the way it's been. Hopefully not 90, but I'm a Northwest born and raised. I'll take my 75 and partly cloudy. But it'll be a little nicer next week. If you want to do some shopping today. Or you got all the way through Friday is how we do the class discounts. You got 20% on all the grasses, and frankly, it's your lucky day if you like perennials, because I didn't just pick out 8 perennials and say you only get it on that. You do any perennial shopping of any kind, you got 20% on that too. So if you want to grab some grasses, grab some perennials, all 20% off. Just tell the lady at the register you were in the class, she hits a button, you get the class discount. Okay?
Good till Friday.
Good all the way through Friday. And if, like I mentioned, the sale coming up, mark down the count. It's a fun thing. We have people come down here every day and leave their name in the raffle jar. Because if you came down the day before, open that door, there is so much stuff in here. There was like, I think 80 packages last year. Grand prizes, there was a fountain, there's all kinds of stuff that we give away a lot to say thanks for you guys for, being loyal Sunnyside shoppers. How's that? So it's the 1 week a year. Everything's on special, and we do a lot of giveaways. So we'll have some fun stuff for the kids, too. So there you go. All right, well, thanks for coming. I'm sorry it's raining today, but it'll get better, right?